Copping. I'm the Area Manager for South Eastern Ward. I'd also like to welcome Barry, our new elected member, and welcome back all our old ones. Chris, Kat, Terry, Mark. I'd also like to introduce the staff. Dean Allen is our District Manager. Esther is our Governance Advisor for one meeting, and then Kelly Martin in the corner will be our new committee advisor after that. Amy Bidwell's from our communication team. We've got Alison Hunt, who's our legal counsel. Okay, making it 1.1. Making and attesting of members' declarations. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please, to receive the nomination?
I so move.
Thank you, Warwick and Terry. I call the following members to read and sign their declarations to the Tairua-Pāuanui Community Board in accordance with Schedule 7, Clause 14 of the Local Government Act 2002. Councillor Barry Gottlieb.
I so move.
I, Tom Gary Gottlieb, declare that I will faithfully and impartially, in accordance with the best of my skill and judgment, execute and perform in the best interest of the Tairua-Pāuanui community, the powers, authorities and duties vested in or imposed upon me as a member of Tairua-Pāuanui Community Board by virtue of the Local Government Act 2002, the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act 1987, and any other relevant legislation.
Okay. And Terry Walker.
I, Terry Murray Walker, declare that I will faithfully and impartially, and according to the best of my skill and judgment, execute and perform in the best interests of the Tairua-Pāuanui community, the powers, authorities invested in or imposed upon me as a member of the Tairua-Pāuanui Community Board by virtue of the Local Government Act 2002, the Local Government Official Information and Meeting Act 1987, and the other.
Thank you. Put the motion forward that the Tairua-Pāuanui Community Board 1 receives the making and attesting of members' declarations report dated 8th of November 2022. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Carried. 1.2, attendance and apologies. Are there any apologies? No apologies. Okay, 1.3, election of chairperson and deputy chairperson. I ask for a mover and seconder to receive motions 1 and 2. I'll move. It's Kat. Any seconder?
Yeah.
Questions? Reinstate the motion before you vote. I've put motion 1 and 2 forward that the Tairua-Pāuanui Community Board receives the election of chairperson and deputy chairperson report dated 7th of November. Approve system B of voting in accordance with the requirements of the Local Government Act 2002, Schedule 7, Clause 25(2). All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Carried. Following the determination of the system's voting, nominations will be called for the position of chairperson and deputy chairperson, and voting will take place in accordance with that determination. Call for nominations for the chairperson.
I'll work.
Darren. Is there any more nominations? Okay, put forward that the Tairua-Pāuanui appoints Warwick Brooks to the position of chairperson of the Tairua-Pāuanui Community Board in accordance with the requirements of the Local Government Act 2002, Schedule 7, Clause 37. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Carried. Call for nominations for the deputy Deputy Chairperson.
Nominate Chris. You.
Second. Yeah. Any further nominations? Okay, the Tairua-Pāuanui Community Board appoints Chris New to the position of Deputy Chairperson of the Tairua-Pāuanui Community Board in accordance with the requirements of the Local Government Act 2002, Schedule 7, Clause 17. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, carried. Okay, I will now vacate. Thank you.
Yeah, I can stay here, but you can stay here. Moving house. So thank you. You're very confident. Just before we continue with the agenda, I would like to acknowledge our new leaders at council, Mayor Len and the CEO, Aileen. I reckon they've brought a little fresh air to council. Following on, I have to say that following the several days of inductions, I got a sense of a new broader cooperation between
to withhold it. And those good reasons have to be. Common examples of withholding grounds are to protect an individual's privacy, to avoid disclosure of a trade secret or unreasonable commercial prejudice, to maintain confidentiality, and to maintain legal professional privilege. Any person can request information, and if they're unhappy with the information they receive, they can make a complaint to the Ombudsman's Office. Authority to make decisions on requests for information are delegated to the Chief Executive and sub-delegated to staff. Any request for information that you receive as elected members should be referred to the Chief Executive in the first instance, and it will be referred down to staff as required. Any information marked public excluded in a meeting should not be released outside of the meeting. In relation to meetings, the rules provide that meetings should be held in public. The public will be excluded only if there are good reasons, and those good reasons are similar to the ones that apply to information generally. Staff will give advice about matters that ought to be public excluded when reports are presented to you. The GWIMA also enables the mayor or chair of a committee to introduce an item on an agenda if it wasn't already there, if there's a clear reason why it ought to be. Likely, this will only relate to major and urgent matters, as any minor matters would still need to be referred to a subsequent public meeting for a resolution and decision on it. The council agenda must be publicly available 2 days prior to the meeting. Getting to the Local Authority Members' Interest Act. This act is designed to protect the integrity of local authority decision making and deals with conflicts of interest. There are two types of interest to touch on. Pecuniary interest is the monetary interest. So anything involving money, either directly or indirectly, is a pecuniary interest. You cannot enter into a contract with the council worth more than $25,000 unless the Auditor General approves it under this act. And breach of this rule automatically disqualifies a member from office. You cannot participate in matters before the council in which you have a pecuniary interest, other than an interest in common with the public, such as being a rate. Breach of this rule is a criminal offence and results in automatic disqualification from office. Your spouse or an interest in a family trust may be relevant also as a pecuniary interest. It is your obligation to declare whether you have an interest and to comply with the act. The Office of the Auditor General produces a booklet to assist members on this act, and there has also been other material already provided to you in your induction program. New amendments to the Local Government Act are relevant also here. A public register of interests to record members' interests is a requirement after the 20th of November this year. Members will be required to provide returns to a registrar who will be appointed to keep the register. So the other type of interest is a non-pecuniary interest, and this is commonly referred to as bias or predetermination. Bias may exist where conduct or by conduct or statements a member may indicate they have predetermined a matter before hearing it, or the member has a close relationship with an individual or organisation affected by the matter. The validity of the council's decision may be at risk, and perception can be a very important factor. Very important to be aware of that. The Crimes Act, 3 sections to bring to your attention. Section 99, 105 and 105A. It is an offence to accept or solicit a bribe or use information containing your role for financial gain. Section 99 of the Crimes Act defines a member as an official for the purposes of the alleged offences, and the offences are contained in sections 105 and 105A, punishable by a term of imprisonment up to 7 years. A conviction will disqualify a member. Secret Commissions Act. This act also establishes offences. You are an agent for the purposes of this act. You cannot accept gifts without the consent of the council. You must disclose a pecuniary interest in any contract which you make with the council. You must not knowingly deliver a false receipt or invoice in relation to the council's business. Offences under this act are punishable by a term of imprisonment not exceeding 7 years. The Financial Markets Conduct Act. This act places elected members in the same position as company directors whenever council offers financial products such as an issue of debt or equity securities. Elected members may be personally liable if documents are registered under this act, such as the product disclosure statement which contains false or misleading. Protected Disclosures Protection of Short Whistleblowers Act. This is a new act, but it continues the work of the previous act. If you become aware of serious wrongdoing in the course of your role, you are protected from liability when disclosing that wrongdoing to authorities. Under council's process, the options to report potential wrongdoing include reporting to the council's confidential provider, PwC, the council's manager of people and capability, the group manager of corporate services, or the chief executive, depends upon which. The Public Records Act. Public Records Act establishes rules around creating and keeping full and accurate records of council business. It has a role in enhancing public confidence in the integrity of local authority records. Records are widely defined, including a signature, seal, text, images, sound, speech, or data stored in any device or medium. It is the responsibility of the member to determine if they hold information which is a public record under this Act and to ensure it is included in the council records. You can do this by referring to the government's payment more through the chief. The Health and Safety Act, the last piece. Under this Act, the council is PCBU, which is the person conducting a business or undertaking. The Act places duties on people who are in the best position to control risks to health and safety as appropriate in the workplace. For the purposes of the Health and Safety at Work Act, elected members, which include the mayor and councillors, but exclude community board members, are officers under the Act. CE and group managers are also officers. There are general obligations of due diligence on those officers, not on community board members. If there are any questions about any of your obligations as the term gets, they feel free to refer those to the governance team or through to the chief executive, and your questions will be answered that way. That concludes my report on the statutory application.
Any questions? Any further questions? We clear we had a very sort of a presentation and introduction, right?
Several days, I understand.
Yeah, and I've spent some hours over the weekend reading through it, so take a while to stick, but
Okay.
thank you. There's no further questions. I put the motion forward that the Tairua-Pāuanui Community Board receive the general explanation of the statutory requirements for elected members 2022 report dated 8th November 2022. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None is carried. 1.5. Can I have a, oh, thank you, Alison. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please, to receive the motion?
I'll second.
Thank you.
Standing orders contains the rules for the conduct and proceedings of the board meetings and ensures local authorities exercise their legislative functions in responsible, transparent citizens. They have been updated in line with LGEC code, so we can any questions?
No further questions? I'll put the motion forward that the Tairua-Pāuanui Community Board receives the Community Board standing orders for 2022-2025 term report dated 8th November 2022. 2, adopts the Community Board standing orders as contained in attachment A of the agenda report, which notes the casting vote is available for use by the chairperson. Audio link or audio visual link is available for use to enable members to join the meeting. And C, the default position for the speaking and moving motions is option C. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There be none. Carried.
I just make one point that it may happen with me in the by video link. I don't count as fallen, but I can vote. So that's probably the specific point that is now changing with the legislation.
Yeah, I'll take the old ones.
Thank you, Gary. Item 1.6, public forum. Can I have a move and a seconder, please, to receive? Yeah. Bob. Good morning. Good morning, everybody.
Welcome aboard, everyone. Fine, ladies and gentlemen. The subject I can't do justice to within 5 minutes, so I'll try and keep it pretty brief. The elected members should have received an email with the documents and the forms. Sorry, Gary, I think you may not have got it because I didn't realise that you were going to get it.
I have seen a lot of information because of someone.
Yeah, so we had a presentation to put up on the screen. Can we get that up?
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
So this is basically about the affects both communities, Tairua and Pāuanui. It's about the state of our harbour, which is deteriorating greatly because of build-up of sand. And the last 50 years, there's been report after report after report of what's happening in the harbour, but nothing gets done. All right. What's happened recently is staff have gone out and got consent with no consultation with anybody to do lift and drift, which has resulted in.
Keep going, sorry.
Up to the next one. Which resulted in a build-up of sand on the bar, which is debatable because the people that did the lift and drift said it's not. But if you speak to 90% of the voting public in both communities, it was a direct result of lift and drift and sand ending up on the bar. So as you can see there, there's a major build-up and boats just couldn't get out. Boats in the marina, boats in the waterways, boats moored just couldn't get out because the bar was basically just about dry. Now, luckily, we've had 2 weeks of easterlies with a swell on it, which is actually not the top of it, and it is now, you can now get out. But we can't just keep doing the same things, lift and drift, and creating more problems. So, we can go to the next one. I'll just quickly go through these because it just gives you an idea of the issues.
It's just the name objects that will pop up in a moment.
We're just doing things that just don't make sense. Okay, over the last 3 years, we've had major build-ups of sand within the harbour, and it's basically related to what's disappeared off Pāuanui Beach. Now, this is a picture of the jetty where the ferry comes in, which was recently dredged. Now, that sandbar wasn't there 3 years ago. All right, we'll flip to the next one. So that's looking back to the Tairua wharf. Now we're looking over towards Paku, and that massive sandbank wasn't there 3 years ago. It's come from.
It's coming up, coming downstream, Bob, or is it coming in? Which way is it?
Yeah, there was a report done in 2014 by Waikato University. It's a 300-page document, and it actually details the tonnage that's coming down the estuary and the cubic metres that's coming back into the harbour. So it's coming in from both directions, and it's not getting out.
So something like.
So in that picture there, you can look over, and you can see the long reach dredge operating in the channel for the marina. They're having to do that on a regular basis. They've been there now for about 2 weeks, dredging that channel, and it's just happening on a regular basis. So the sand is just coming back into the harbour. Flip to the next one. So that's not a very clear picture, but that's the damage on the southern end of the beach. That's a lady standing there with her dog, just to give you an indication of how much sand disappeared. Next one. That's another picture, so you can clearly see the sand. It's just about dry on the bar, of the sand build up on the bar when it happened. Next one. This is Royal Bully Point boat ramp, and the sand that continually builds up on the boat ramp. That recently was cleared off and put 200 metres back up the estuary, where it's dumped over the side and ends up just going back into the circuit. That there cost $3,500 just to remove that sand and get a truck 200 metres up the estuary. So we're just absolutely wasting money. Next one. Prior to them trucking it, they were dumping it beside the boat ramp. Okay. If you get a southwesterly, it just blows it straight into the car park. Then they hire a contractor with a sweeper to come and sweep all the sand out of the car park. Explain that and make sense out of that. In the meantime, ratepayers is paying for all this. Next one. Okay, so
That's the last one.
yeah, so I had a meeting with AMU CEO, with 2 representatives from the Waterways Body Corp. I've had discussions with WRC, I've had discussions with Warren Mayor, and all on the same page that we need to address this issue now. And the issue we've got is there's been no consultation whatsoever. When council went and got the consent to do the lift and drift, we didn't know anything about it until we were notified that they'd actually lodged the consent. If you talk to anybody in the voting community, lift and drift is not a long-term option. So what we're saying is we have to renew this consent. We've got to increase it to 2,000 cubic metres to at least 20 to 40,000 cubic metres. And it's really concerning now because I listened to Warren, and totally agree. For the last 2 years, COVID took over and there was no consultation, nothing happened in the communities. We were totally ignored. But I've got concern now that on this report you have here, this one here, it said the staff are working on renewing these consents. Okay, no consultation. What are the volumes they're talking about? Is it going to be lift and drift? Is it going to be dump it back in the harbour? We've got to get over from this dumping it back in the harbour. And if it's not suitable going to Pāuanui Beach, it goes land-based because we just can't keep dumping it in the harbour. So we urgently need some sort of working group in this group to get their act together and start listening to the community and the voting community. Otherwise, we're going to end up with a big sandbank and a river running through it and no harm.
Thank you, Robert. Quick question. Questions? Yes.
Through the chair, Bob, has anybody spoken about a breakwater?
Breakwater.
In other words, a rock wall that runs.
Rock wall's not going to do anything. We don't need a rock wall. All we need to do is just move the sand.
You think it's the sand from the southern end of the beach coming back into the harbour?
Yep. I was on the community board for 9 years and I wanted to on Jim Dunn. And Jim says that in a storm, 70% of the sand goes out 10 metre mark. Okay. The other 30% travels north along the beach and ends up in the harbour. So what's happened now is that so much sand has disappeared from the southern end. There's not enough out there in the 10 metre mark to come back. So the beach is not getting a level on it. It's still sitting dead flat. So if we get 5 metre swells, it's just going to take more of the reserve of that.
So the next question is that the sand from the southern end of the beach would be great for re-nourishing.
Yep.
But is the sand that's coming out of the harbour gritty? You know, is it heavier or is it light?
There's two parts to the consent. There's the consent for the sand to go back on the beachfront, which is the sand that Royal Point. WRC come and monitor that sand 3 or 4 times a year, take samples of the sand, and say yes, it's full. Anything that comes out of the main channel probably wouldn't be suitable to go on the beachfront, and that needs to go land-based. Land-based. Yeah, right. Can't afford to just keep dumping it back in the barn. So it urgently needs attention, and we just can't let the staff get along, renew the current consents, because it's a total waste of time.
So you're saying, put a stop to what's happening at the moment, and we need to come up with a plan.
Yes, because the issue is we've got the consent runs out on the 30th of August 2023. But if you want to renew that consent or start working on that consent, you have to start 6 months prior. So it's urgent because basically they've got to lodge something by February to WRC. And it's easier to roll over the consent. It's harder to make alterations to it. But I've spoken to Amy Robinson at WRC, and she basically says, look, if it's stretching for safe navigation and that type of thing, can't refuse it.
Thank you. Anna, good morning.
Good morning. How are you all? Good, thanks. Well, I've got more positive. Welcome all. And I'm looking forward to working together. I've met most of you, if not all of you. I would like to work together to have Pāuanui included in the next annual plan consultation, but preferably before the draft
is set up. And I saw in this note that end of January next year, the budget will be reviewed and proposals and opinions for consultation. So what I would like to request is if we could maybe have a separate meeting or sit together to work together and find out how you would like to see included in the new annual plan. So I'd like to know if that's a possibility.
Yeah, I'll leave that for the staff to contact you now.
Okay, will do. That's it. I'm looking forward to it together.
You. David?
Oh, okay, right. This comes from a subject that was raised during the elections, and I mentioned it before, is vicarious liability. We've had a number of decisions made by staff without consultation. You've heard that repeatedly. And now the question arises in obligations for new electees of what training does TCDC apply to its staff on the understanding of vicarious liability. So what I would propose is that I already spoken with them on the subject, and the proposal that I'd like to the mayor, identifying that training on the subject is provided for TCDC staff and any other appropriate members of the elected group.
It's a very difficult field.
Yes, I know.
Liability. And with the new land law, the changes in law some years ago, if perhaps things aren't done on the bridge and people die, it could come back to everyone. But all I'm saying is that it's a field that needs to be looked at very carefully.
Yes.
The door's been opened somewhat.
I raised the issue because of my past employer with 800 staff. When we introduced vicarious liability as a subject, it is both beneficial to the organisation and it is both beneficial to the participants, mainly the staff, and understanding what their obligations are on a management basis, with no surprises to the administration of the organisation. And that's the primary goal, so that we end up with a better communication standard for all. That's all I have. Thank you, Warwick. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Good morning, Nick.
Good morning. Morning. I've got 6 copies, which I was going to give to, wasn't give to the. Yeah, I was going to. Okay, I was just going to give to this. I was going to give this to the community board and the 2 councillors. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I've got one, got an additional copy.
Is that the new one I sent you? Not the new one. Good. That's right. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Tairua-Pāuanui Community Board members, and TCDC South East Board councillors. My name is Nick Rowe, represent residents of Wharf Road, Petty Parade, and Blake Avenue. This area is shown on page 5 of our submission. We're asking our community board to approach the TCDC on our behalf with the following submission concerning commercial bus fleet parking and activity in residential area by Tairua. So, I know 5 minutes, so I'll try and keep it short. I may read out the summary, please. So the summary, the public parking areas on Wharf Road, Petty Parade, Grey Avenue, and nearby areas in Tairua are being used by a commercial fleet of buses managed by the Tairua Bus Company Limited. The parking in these areas is not designed for use by a commercial bus fleet. The usual practice for commercial bus operators in Coromandel and elsewhere in New Zealand park their commercial fleet on land which is designated for commercial purposes or located away from residential areas. Furthermore, parking of commercial fleet negatively impacts the quality of life for residents and has resulted in access issues which are manifesting immediate health and safety concerns, particularly for elderly and disabled residents, other road users, and children who live in the area and use the main concourse to travel to and from Tairua School. Document these issues in detail in the submission. Rate-paying residents in these locations supporting this submission are of the view that this commercial use for parking areas is inappropriate and ask that the Tairua-Pāuanui Community Board instruct the Thames Coromandel District Council to formally investigate this issue and respond appropriately. By this we mean take practical steps to return the affected areas to residential and Mr. Parking. So there, the fleet is located, the office is located one walk road to Tairua, and there's a list there of the fleet has increased from a few transit vans to 8 buses in all now. So I won't, as you have everything in front of you, I'll say that there are quality of life issues, including engines idling, pre-departure, and return under. There's a noise issue and a pollution issue. There's also a visual obstruction to residents and the unwanted noise. There are also health and safety issues which are documented there in our submission, and there are additional access issues. Drivers vacating their property and sometimes have restricted views of the road before they get onto the road. There have been some incidents where, especially on Grey Avenue, where cars exiting the main highway have to avoid the buses parked there. If they're in the middle of the road, some residents travelling north to get on the road have to pull over and avoid those oncoming cars. So I'll just read this one, Anthony. So we ask the Tairua-Pāuanui Community Board, in considering the submission, direct the TCDC to formally investigate the issue and report back to you on practical steps to return the affected areas to residential parking. We submit that it is not appropriate for these areas to be used by a commercial bus fleet in the same way that it would not be appropriate for a commercial building and construction fleet use. Point out that other commercial bus operators in Coromandel and elsewhere in New Zealand park their commercial buses on commercial premises, on a commercial basis, away from the residential areas. Local examples to the Melbourne Bus Company and Go Bus. So we have there are about 28 residents, all listed here, who support this submission. There's the plan here of the area and a few incidents on the plan that depicts what is happening in our residential area. And then we're supported by photographs here of the buses and the parking in our area. So it is quite a big, it is not just a case of bus drivers leaving their buses parked outside their homes while they, for the night. They do not live in our area. They do live in some sorry. Discretion of the buses being stabled in this area. And there's have the photographs here of the buses of various times, and a photograph here of the trailer parking for the boats, which is essential for boaters to be able to park here and not have buses on that. So,
There's a question.
Yeah, question. Yeah.
Can you give us an indication what the buses used for? Are they tourism? Are they school buses?
Yes,
Are they local?
mainly buses used to take students to the Tairua-Pāuanui Community School, and that goes to the school and picks them up. They also go to the pick up students from the Tairua-Pāuanui to take them to the school. And we have approached the bus company to ask them if they can park some of their buses on the road, especially during holidays when it gets very busy around that area. They're parking visitors, which is great. And they have taken to parking a couple of buses at school during holidays, which relieves the situation.
So there's no public buses, they're all school buses.
The school buses, what they do, trips to the airport.
How do they?
They go from shuttles from Tairua through Tairua. I think it's going to be nasty, isn't it? Yeah. So they're a great service. I'm not. No location. That's the location.
This guy started off with just one or two buses.
Yeah.
And the business has grown exponentially, but he hasn't bothered to go and find premises.
Yeah.
This is about what he's getting right. Why pay rents? You don't have to.
Because it's regional council is putting a connected bus system through the Coromandel as well. So there'll be additional buses. So I just wonder about this issue that maybe needs to be raised and.
Yes. Well, actually, not for me to come up with a solution, or I'll have a few, but perhaps it should. Perhaps a bus plan that encompasses this sort of a problem, and for instance, bus stops probably in the town, maybe where kids can sit down, picked up, that sort of thing, and then suggested that because there are lots of buses doing great service, perhaps eventually find a place to park and overnight.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Good morning, Derek.
Morning. Thanks for giving me a so yeah, that's my name's Derek Adams. I'm the new chairman of the Tairua District Trust. Tairua District Trust, as some of you may know, was formed by Gary and Ann Fowler about 10-15 years ago, and they have taken responsibility for the development of the cycle trail out towards Tairua with a long-term aspiration to get to Tairua. The trail has been stalled for the last 2.5-3 years, and over the last 9 months or so, we have made a number of changes, which I was keen to bring up to speed on. So first of all, we have made a number of changes within the trust. There are 4 new trustees on the trust, with probably more broad representation, with someone from Hawaii, someone from Tairua, and a couple of people with extensive infrastructure development backgrounds. And we've spent a lot of time talking to a lot of people from Ngāti Ngāti Doc, Walking Access New Zealand, Heritage New Zealand, Tanner's, Tanner, Gut Dunlop, DCBC, Waikato Regional Council, we've pretty much spoken to everybody we could think of. And we have come to the conclusion that the original plan to get Tairua and continue is unlikely to be successful in the short term, and we needed a new plan. We have come up with a new plan, which I'm keen to present out today. I think you've got maybe a copy of this here. That's up there, right? Okay, well, I can explain it from there. So the existing trail starts here at the waterways, continues around the southern side of the Tairua River, past Duck Creek, and actually ends up at a point about there. And our proposed plan is to build a bridge across the Tairua River there.
And I think you also have a photo of that, but.
Is that past point? Whereabouts?
It is, on the corner of,
Oh, this one.
yeah, it's showing the.
100 metres suspension bridge.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
It's actually 120 metre long, quite doable, but it is getting up there in length. And then on the northern side, the trail would extend around the outside of the Tanner farm. So we've had extensive discussions with Alan and Lee Tanner, and they're supportive of that alignment. It is publicly owned land around the outside, so there is a TCDC road reserve around there, as well as a section of DOT controlled marginal strip. It would hit the state highway at Swampy Stream at this point here, from where it would occupy a space in the NZTA road reserve until it gets to the cemetery. And from the cemetery, it would cross the border with the cemetery and head down into the harbour, where there would be a kilometre long boardwalk. And the reason for that is that there's no room for it to fit in the NZTA road reserve. I have to say, in all of our consultation, this has been, we have yet to come across anyone who close to the issue. And I'm hoping that I'm not about to find the first people who are attending that. We are currently in the throes of putting together a resource consent application to consent the entire line, including the bridge. And we have archaeologists and environment ecologists and coastal scientists and landscape architects and as well as all the engineering disciplines who are all engaged and involved. And we believe that we're on track to submit a resource consent application in the first quarter of next year. We're about to go public with this alignment in the next couple of weeks. We have had extensive discussions with some within TCDC, and they're all very supportive. There were probably four things that I just wanted to make you aware of today. So the first was that we really appreciate the ongoing financial support that you generously provide us, and so we will thank you for that. I think we've got a 3-year commitment, and we're probably in the second year now of the 3-year commitment. And that sort of backbone financing is critical to allow us to proceed with the planning that we're currently having. The trail will be expensive to build, unlike the section on the southern side, which we've been able to build largely with volunteer labour. This will involve a specialist bridge contractor and a specialist in the boardwalk, both of which likely to cost about $1.5 million each. The balance of the trail we will be able to build largely ourselves, albeit there will be barriers, road safety barriers required on a chunk of the NZTA. We're looking to engage with the NZTA, engage with council and other funders to secure funds for it post getting a resource consent. Second thing was we wanted you to be aware that we have changed the name of the trail. There was always a little bit of friction about whether this was the Tairua-Pāuanui Trail or Tairua-Pāuanui Trail. We're actually now going to call it the Tairua Trail. And that seems to be obviously quite all we canvassed that. The third is we would love to have a submission in support or a letter in support from the community board when we put in our resource consent application if this is something that you're prepared to do. I think the ability to have a broad consensus of support will aid our resource consent application future. And the fourth and final thing, I just wanted to make you aware, the there's a couple of tight spots on the alignment in the NZTO road reserve. And one in particular is where we pass the cemetery. And we intend to consult with the RSA and the TCDC just about the ability to squeeze past there. Whether we may need to look at whether we can occupy a metre or so of the cemetery on the road bend. So we'll consult further with that and see whether that's possible, but I just keep you aware of it. Yeah, that's me.
Thank you, Terry.
Yeah, any questions? Yeah, well, fantastic project. Really great. You've got the connection with the wharf at the top, the frequency. Just about the construction of the trail. At the moment, it's a metal constructed road. Do you have to change that construction type if you get near the motorway?
No, it will continue to be a gravel surface. Complies with the various categories of trails. We're a grade 2 trail.
Yeah.
And NZTA are not looking for us to do anything else in that regard. If they would be so kind as to fund it, we'd like to have a concrete or steel. But at the moment, that's probably unlikely, or if it is, that we limited from.
Okay, because they normally recommend if it goes on the road, it's going to be at least the quality of the road on the side of the road.
Yeah.
So, yeah, interesting. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So there are also, it's interesting, there's a bridge at Terrace, Spring, where they're quite heavy for us not to, they don't want us to attach to their existing bridge. They would like as an independent structure, and if it is so, then it can be to a lower standard than if it was attached to their bridge. Generally speaking, they seem to be supportive of the idea of getting bikes off the road, and particularly supportive of the alignment closer to Tairua, where it would take pedestrians involved.
Right. The board walked through mangroves, is it? Through the
It's actually outside the drip line of the Tairua that are along there. The ecologists are indicating that they don't think that we can have a major problem in getting approvals from the Waikato Regional Council.
Really marvellous.
Yes, I agree.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you. Are there any other people that wish to present a public forum? There being none, then I had a word from second, please, to receive. All those in favour, I'll put the motion that the Tairua-Pāuanui Community Board receives the speakers and the public forum. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, carried. Item 1.7. Are there any items to be added to the agenda? Point 8. Are there any conflicts of interest?
Yes. I have conflict of interest with the request for discretionary funding, unrestricted way, because I was on the two. That's the fireworks, 1.3.1.
Yes.
The financial,
I'm a member of the committee.
so not financial.
Yeah. That's one of us.
Thank you. Item 2.1. Can I have a mover of respectful, please?
Yes.
Yes. This is the Tairua-Pāuanui Community Board CAPEX work program 2022-2023 and other operational information updates. Andrew, no, Bruce.
Good morning, board. Apologies, Andrew's not able to be here, so I've jumped in to deliver this report for him. So I'm Bruce Hinson. I'm the Group Manager for Operations for the Thames Coromandel District Council. Andrew works in my team, but I'll do my best to drop down into his report and try and give you any answers if you're looking for any more information. So for anyone new on the board, we do this obviously every meeting just to try and give you a bit of an update on all the community type projects, about how things are going, give you a bit of a status, red, amber or green status on how things are going, and happy to take any questions. I don't have all the answers obviously, but I'm happy to take questions and come back to you with answers if I don't know them off the top of my head. So happy to run through the program and take any of those questions.
Where is that barbecue development park is quite small?
Is it? So you're saying that it's quite small, Chris?
It's a single one, it's a double.
Is it? Okay. Yeah. It's a little bit hard to hear you guys. You're a little bit staticky, but I'll do my best. I'll follow up with the team and just check on that one.
That's what it appears to be.
Yeah, I agree.
The ones that Hippie Reserve and the ones that Āpāuanui are double bangers.
Are they?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure there'll be a reason why they've gone with a single, not a double, but I'll find out and we'll let you know.
We might need another one put in there just further along.
Yeah,
Like-
it might have been a budget constraint issue and we'll come back and put another one in if we need to, but I'll find out anyway. There might be a good reason.
Good.
So that was the Paku one, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, bottom of the park,
Okay, no problem.
the Esplanade.
Sure, name.
That's great.
That's how they're relatively. The Esplanade.
Okay, are there any other questions? No one got any questions?
I just got one for Councillor the Chair. Bruce, if you can just give us an update on the Āpāuanui Holland stream improvement. The obtaining of a long-term resource consent that will allow council to undertake proactive maintenance. Has that consent been lodged or is that complete? Is that consent in place?
I don't believe the consent is in place. No, the consent's been lodged, and there's a lot of discussions going on around negotiations around access and those types of things. But I'm pretty sure that everything's moving as we'd expected with that consent. These things obviously always take a little bit longer than what you'd quite like, but that's obviously part of it, so we can maintain and manage the stream as well as we can, but then obviously also look at potential capital upgrades that we might need to do on the stream. And obviously the budget that's in there for this financial year, it's quite a sizable budget. If we don't need to spend it, we won't spend it. But the reality is that under those really high flow conditions that we occasionally get, the stream struggles to cope. So there will be, I think there will be some tweaks, and I think they're looking at like a high flow bypass. So that in normal times, like now, it flows nicely because it's a beautiful little stream that runs at the back of people's properties. But during that really high flow type weather that we can get, it needs to have like a bit of a pressure release valve so it can just overflow without kind of damaging people's properties and houses. So I think the team are busy working on that kind of bigger, more capital upgrade type stuff that may need to be done.
Has there been any incidents in this last couple of weeks where we've had some fair sort of rainfall? Nothing reported back?
Nothing that I've heard of, Warwick. No, so nothing's made it through to me, and I would think that I probably would have heard by now if something had happened. But what obviously, as you kind of understand this, and you're well aware that it's so different depending on the actual intensity of the weather event. You know, if you get a really short, sharp, intense event, that's when problems happen. Whereas if it builds up slowly over time, often like the stream and the infrastructure will cope with that. It's when we have those really intense events, there's just too much volume coming down in too short amount of time. So it could be that we have had some events where we've had a lot of rain, but maybe they haven't quite the the rainfall intensity patterns haven't been of an extent that they would give us problems. But I haven't heard anything at this stage. Nothing's made its way to me.
Would have been tested.
I wonder if I could ask a question. Bruce, did you hear Bob Renton talking about harbour issues?
About what? Sorry, harbour issues?
Yes.
Yeah, I heard most of it. I've caught up with Bob previously. I didn't hear everything Bob said this morning, but I heard most of it.
Yeah, well, have you got any comment about his suggestion that things go on hold? Okay, I can pass it over.
Yeah, so it is a challenging issue. Obviously, it's a dynamic environment out there in the harbour. We've got the issue of trying to keep the boat ramp clear so that boats can get out, particularly the Coast Guard craft. So that's been our kind of main priority. There's obviously bigger issues going on with the bar, with not a lot of water over the top of the bar at present. So that's not really something that we'd get into. But as far as keeping the channel clear so the ferry, the Coast Guard and users can use the channel, that is something that we are interested in and have been working on. So the team have been working on a short-term consent to enable us to do more regular small-scale dredging, just to deal with that stuff at the ramp. But we're always happy to work with the community and try and work on some bigger consents or whatever we need to do. But obviously, as everyone's aware, the challenge of doing a much bigger consent is there's obviously a lot more work, a lot more science required, a lot more consultation as opposed to like a small maintenance consent. So I think the answer is probably both types of consents really. So a bigger one that's needed less frequently, and then a smaller maintenance type consent. So yeah, it is a challenge. But like I mentioned, my team have been working quite closely with the Coast Guard on that because that's our key priority for them to be able to get out. So, and my understanding is that the Coast Guard are comfortable with the way the team are moving things forward. Not saying there's not going to be other ideas and other views, but at this stage, we're trying to do what we can.
Just for the chair, just to add to Bruce's points. We heard from Bob this morning that it's a topic that can't do justice to in 5 minutes. Eileen has arranged for a detailed briefing for the board, and that will be before Christmas. So you'll get to hear from staff about the situation, the new consent for 12,000 cubic metres, and then you'll be well placed to consider how you might re-engage with Bob at that point.
Yeah.
So just through the chair, Warwick, so we understand there is a consent currently lodged, is that right?
Yes, yeah, I believe the consent's granted for that amount that Dean was just talking about.
Yeah, granted. Was granted last week, Monday of last week, off the top of my head.
Right.
So only just recently.
Okay, so you're happy with that consent, the amount of store or sand taken out of the harbour? What's the rate? What is it, the rate? So 2,000 cubic a month or something like that?
The board members will got to build that resource consent.
Yeah, so through the chair, that's something that will be in the briefing. I do know that it's 12,000 cubic metres over a year. 1,000 cubic metres each month is able to be done. But I suggest we wait until the briefing, at which point we'll be able to get all of the information from the experts, and we'll be able to thorough look at that.
Yeah. Just coming back to Holland Street, is there some sort of monitoring on the stream? Like, I know we had 132 mil last Friday. I just wondered if there's any sort of monitoring by one of the local residents of how high or up or down it's going.
Yeah, I don't have those answers off the top of my head. Apologies. There's no automatic monitoring in there, but like you say, residents who are permanent residents are well placed to kind of provide information. I know my team have been dealing with a lot of the residents out there, so whether they have that information already. But what I'll do is I'll go back to them and just check with the people that are running the project and make sure that if they've not already in touch with the residents that may be able to provide that useful information, that they make contact, because that is a good point as to how did it respond. You know, we know from how much rain we got down in the town of Pāuanui. So at the wastewater plant, we have rain gauges which measure the rain and the intensity of it. But obviously it's the rain up in the hills. And so that missing piece might be able to be filled at least in part by the residents' observations, as you suggested. So, yep, I'll check in with my team on that one as well.
Okay,
Peters.
Through the chair, so there is a comment from Keith Farley saying that water level will be monitored by WRC if that helps.
When we first started talking about this, which was quite some time ago now, we had a bit of a committee going to try and organise it. Since Jonathan Smith left, we hear virtually nothing.
Yeah.
It would be nice if we kept in the loop a bit more, I think.
Yeah, sure. No, happy to take that feedback on board. Yeah, we have really struggled to recruit in that projects team, but things are still moving. It's just, you know, when we're busy like that, often the communication is the first thing that drops off, which is not good. I'm not saying it's a good thing, it's just reality, but I'll go back when I'm checking with the team. I'll also give them a bit of a reminder around the communication and make sure that we're keeping those lines open.
Yeah, residents and all sorts sitting there talking, and that seemed to help keep them a bit happy, a bit placated.
Yeah. I mean, everyone just appreciates the respect of good communication. So happy to take that on board and like I say, give the team a bit of a reminder there.
Yeah, Bruce, can I just quickly ask you around the Terrace skate park, and maybe Ollie might be able to listen to. There was a meeting on the 18th of November to discuss the draft design. Did that meeting take place?
Yes, it was a project meeting.
And how did it go?
It went well.
And did all the members of the committee, they're all engaged now?
Yes.
Most of them.
Most of them.
Yes.
Any further questions for Chris? If not, I'll put the motion forward. The Tairua-Pāuanui Community Board receives the Tairua-Pāuanui Community Board CAPEX work program 2022-2023 report dated 31 October 2022. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None carried. Thank you. Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you very much, Board.
Item 2.2, licence to occupy parking platform, 31 Tairua Terrace. Can I have a move in a second, please?
Okay.
You have seen it? Yeah, thank you. James. Good morning, James.
Good morning, Board. How are you this morning?
Good.
Good. Should I take the report as read?
Yes. Yeah. Is there any discussion on it?
Through the chair, can I just raise a matter? Sorry, James, I didn't catch you before the meeting, but we just want to amend resolution 3 to say is that the council delegates the chief executive.
Sure.
The delegation. I'll put it on screen. Chair Brooks.
Sorry, the sound isn't very good. I can hardly hear you.
Are there any other questions relating to this parking platform? If not, I'll put the motion that the Tairua-Pāuanui Community Board receive the licence to occupy road between 31 Tairua Terrace, primary dated 1. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? None. Carried. Thank you. Item 3.1, out of cycle budget request, Tairua-Pāuanui Promotions Trust Incorporated. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please?
Yeah, I'll make that.
Seconded?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take the report as read. Is there any questions?
You're going to keep this promotions for this group. Why isn't it just coming out of an OPEX annual grant?
Because there isn't one at the moment. That's why we need to go to the outside.
Wouldn't you go through an annual plan?
We can do, and we can actually set it up also for the long-term plan.
Yeah. And
do it through way of funding agreement, if that's what the board chooses to do at that time.
So they could do that for this 2023, 24 year, couldn't they?
No, because there's no budget. no budget, that's why we're having to do an out cycle for this year.
OPEX is OPEX coming through a grant, comes from ratepayers money.
Yes, but there's no budget line in the 22-23 year for that budget. That's why we need to go to retained earnings. We can go to the annual plan for the 23-24 year, if that's what the board chooses to do.
Oh, just going into this year's one. This year's one. Oh, okay. Because the fireworks is not till next year, though, it's in the next year's budget.
Fireworks is going to be happening in December, which is financial year.
Yeah, this, and this all new, is it? Here's it, right? Yeah, okay.
No, fireworks last year.
No. Okay, gotcha. And we've sort of been requiring, well, there's a grant, we used to, we gave them a grant each year. Yeah. And then there was public subscription. So, we're just trying to put it on. Yeah, okay, on a good footing. We didn't not do it.
Yeah.
It's become a. Well, it's institution. Yes. People come from far and wide. Yeah.
They kept the grant from last year.
Yeah. So are there any more questions for you? If not, I put the motion forward that the Tairua-Pāuanui Community Board receives the out-of-cycle budget request. Tairua-Pāuanui Promotion Trust Incorporated report dated 28th October 2022. We recommend that the council approve the out-of-cycle budget request of $30,000 from the 22-23 to 23-24 financial years. Tairua-Pāuanui retained earnings to the Tairua-Pāuanui Promotions Incorporated to organise and manage the annual New Year's Eve fireworks display in the Tairua Harbour. All those in favour, please say aye. Any opposed? None? Carried. Thank you. Item three.
For the chair, sorry, actually, Chair Brooks. We just need to adjourn the meeting for 5 or 10 minutes. If you'd like to go and have a cup of tea. We have a forced update on our computer system. So we just need to run that. Apologies for that.
Fine. We will adjourn for several
We
minutes.
tried to get that to override it, but it unfortunately wouldn't work.
Yes.